Hi, and welcome to this Elementor Responsive Basics webinar. My name is Ziv, and I'm a web designer and Elementor's lead educator. And I'm really excited to help you use the internet's leading WordPress drag and drop site builder, Elementor. This webinar will give you a basic breakdown of Elementor's responsive editing abilities and show you how to use them creatively to make sure that your sites look great on tablet and on mobile as well. Making sure that your sites are mobile responsive is an important part of the build process, and very important if you want your sites to be successful. According to Google, responsive websites perform better in search rankings because they provide a better user experience than sites that aren't mobile friendly. And they also like that mobile responsive Elementor sites use single URLs as opposed to different URLs for separate mobile versions of websites. During the webinar, we will work on this pre-built spa service page on a high-end hotel website. It has only been built for desktop, and it's up to us to make sure it looks great on tablets and mobile as well. We'll do it step by step, and along the way I'll introduce you to all of Elementor's responsive settings, so you'll get a practical understanding of how to use them and know what to look out for the next time you work on your site. It's important to know that the features and settings we will go over in this webinar can be applied to all types of websites in different industries, such as the hospitality industry, restaurants, software as a service companies, gyms, e-commerce, and a lot more. Having a fully responsive website will help convert more potential customers by reducing bounce rates and improving brand perception. So what are we waiting for? Let's dive in and make a start. Okay, so this is the page that we're going to be working on. And what I've done is I've pre-built it only for desktop. So you'll see exactly what the tablet and the mobile modes, what they look like. And you'll see the same things that you might come across when building your own sites. What I'll do is I'll make mobile edits section by section, and we'll do it step by step. And this way you can really see how you can control what your visitors see when viewing your sites on all of the mobile devices. So let's first check out the tablet. Okay, so Elementor is very smart, and it makes sure that its widgets, they're mobile friendly. In the header, you can see that the navigation turned into a hamburger icon, and the button and the logo, they're already resized a little bit. Of course, we can tweak it a lot more, and we can make it a lot better as well, which is what we'll do. The headings and the call to action widgets, they're also resized nicely. And also when we scroll down, you can see that the motion effects that are set on the desktop, they also work for the mobile devices. And what we'll do is we'll also go through all of these sections, and I'll show you how to personalize and to make custom layouts for each device. The same goes for mobile. The tablet screen is bigger than mobile, so by default they look a little bit better. And as you can see, the mobile needs more attention, so we're going to be looking at that also in depth. All right, so let's make a start. I'll go ahead and I'll click here to edit the header first. And for the desktop, the nav menu displays all of the pages on the site. But when we want to go to the tablet, you can see that it changes to the hamburger menu. And when you click on it, you can see the pages. But out of the box, it doesn't look good. You can see that the font's too big and things just don't seem right. So the first thing that I'll do is, in the editor, I'll open up the hamburger menu so you can actually see the changes that we'll make. So in the panel on the left, what I'll do is I'll go to the mobile drop-down section, and I'll just set it to take up the full width. So this way it basically stretches all the way, and what we can do then is we can align all of the menu items to the center. So now all of the items, they appear in the middle. Next, what I'll do is I'll go to the Style tab, and in drop-down, because we're busy working with the drop-down, we can style it a bit. So you can see that by default the typography is set to primary, and that is a global font. A global font is a predefined global typography style that you can assign to text elements anywhere throughout your site. And it's very good to use them for fonts that you use on multiple parts of your site, because it saves time and it allows you to work in a more structured way. I'm going to be delving into it very soon, and when we actually go over the page, and you'll also see how to make them mobile responsive. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'll change it to accent, and let's move on to styling it some more. I'll scroll down and I'll adjust the vertical padding, which allows you to control the space between the nav items. 25 looks good. And let's also add a subtle divider between them. I'll set the border type to solid and then give a subtle color. As a very subtle color just to distinguish between the background color and the divider. And I'll just play around with the width just a little bit. Okay, great. Now let's preview this. Okay, I'm happy with this. Now let's move on to the toggle button. I'll style it a bit, so I'll just give the lines a color. And for the background color, I'll drag the opacity all the way down so it's transparent. Next, I'll just adjust the size a little bit. And that's it. Okay, great. So now we can move on to the mobile. Let's check it out. The nav menu looks great too, but the mobile devices, they are smaller in width and in height, and you can see that the elements, they aren't aligned. So let's go over some Elementor settings that you can use to create custom layouts that fix this. So first of all, for the logo, what we can do is we can adjust the width. And as you can see, next to the width, there is a mobile device icon. And this means that the value that we set for the width, it will only be applied to mobile devices. And we can do that for the desktop, and we can do that for the tablet as well. There are many settings that have these device icons, which we're going to be tweaking together during this webinar. But it's very important to remember that when you change settings that don't have these device icons, it will basically affect the layout and the design of all of the devices. So also the desktop and also the tablet. Just keep that in mind, and also keep a lookout for these device icons. Okay, now let's align the logo. I'll align it to the center. Again, this change is only going to be affected on mobile devices because it has a device icon next to it. Let's move on to the second column. By default, it appears under the first one because, and not next to it, because on mobile devices there's not enough space. Another cool responsive feature that you can use to adjust your layouts is the horizontal and the vertical align. They allow you to align all of the content in a column, so there's no need to add redundant padding if you use these settings. For this design, I'll just set it to center. Also, I'll link a video in the description below about all of these options. Okay, let's check it out. Great. Now the header looks great on mobiles as well. Let's go back to desktop. And we'll make a start editing the page. Also, don't forget to save the changes when you're moving on to editing another site part. Okay, so let's start off with the first section. I'll check it out on tablet, which looks good. So I'll just leave it as is. Next, I'll go ahead and preview the mobile view, which looks good too. And soon I'll show you exactly how to adjust texts for your designs. We'll delve into that. So you'll see exactly how to fine-tune your designs for these devices. First, I want to have a look at these call to action widgets and explain the column width concept, which is a powerful setting that allows you to create custom layouts for all of the devices. And as you can see over here on the tablet, it looks good, but having 3 of them next to each other, it does seem a little bit cramped. So we're going to be fixing that. And also on mobile, it automatically positions the column under each other. And we'll fix that as well, because having 3 of them might just be a little bit too much for your mobile design. Let's go back to tablet. And instead of having 3 call to action widgets next to each other, I'll set to only show 2. You can do that in the column settings. Right now, all three, they take up 1/3 of the section's width, and I'll set the first column to take up 50% of the width. You can see that the second column still takes up 1/3. I'll set the second column to 50 as well. Also, notice that there are device icons for this setting as well. So these values, they are only applied on tablet devices. Okay, so now the question is, what are we going to do with the third one? Another great feature that you can use to control your designs is responsive visibility. And it allows you to hide certain elements on specific devices. I'm going to be doing this for the third call to action widget. And of course, this depends on your site and its needs. For me, all three call to action widgets, they have the same link, so it doesn't affect it. I'll go to the column settings because I want to hide the entire column on tablet devices. And in the advanced tab, I'll go to the responsive dropdown. I'll hide this column on tablet and mobile. As you can see, it's grayed out now, indicating that it's set to hide. I'll go ahead and hide the panel so you can see. Cool, that looks a lot better for tablet devices. Okay, now let's check out the mobile mode. The third column is grayed out as well. For mobile, I think having one call to action widget is better. So what I'll do is I'll hide this column on mobile devices only. Great. Now let's move on to the rotating logo. Which looks good on tablet. It also looks good on mobile. And you can always tweak your images just like we did with the logo in the header, just to fit your design. Alright, time to talk about texts. Like I mentioned before, we can control what they look like on tablet and mobile devices as well. You can see that the typography over here, it's set to primary, which is a global font. And we can click here to either give it a custom style and also make sure it's mobile responsive by adjusting the settings that have the device icons. But what I'm going to be doing is just leave the global primary font because I use it for the majority of the headings on the site. And this way, by making sure that the global primary font is mobile responsive, I will only have to set it up once, and my texts, they will be responsive without having to go over them one by one and set them up for tablet and mobile, which will save me a lot of time. So I'll go ahead and click to manage my global fonts. By the way, if this concept is new to you, I recommend watching the Global Color and Fonts webinar, where I delve into all of the details and show you how to create a design system with them. I'll also link it in the description. I'll go ahead and click on primary and let's check out the typography settings. As you can see, the font over here is empty, and this indicates that the current tablet size is inherited from the desktop. And this is an important concept. If I click on desktop, you can see that it's set to 60 pixels. So in tablet, it's still set to 60 pixels. And the same goes for mobile. This is the default behavior, and if we want, we can change it. I'll just make it a little bit smaller for tablet. And let's check out the mobile now. You can see that on mobile, it's also gotten smaller. This is because the mobile inherits the tablet's changes that we just made. And what I'll do is I'll just increase it again so it fits nicely on mobile devices. It's important to keep this hierarchy in mind when you're busy adjusting your settings, and also to keep an eye out for these empty values with settings that have device icons, so you know where the default values come from. Now, another cool thing to do, instead of manually adjusting the sizes for tablet and for mobile, you can use a more responsive unit. I'll go ahead and delete these values so you can see. Now, let's go back to desktop. And instead of pixels, which is it's an absolute unit, I'll change the font size unit to EM, which isn't an absolute unit, it's a relative unit, and they scale better between device sizes. I'll go ahead and set it to 3.6 to fit my design. Now, let's just see what happens in tablet mode and mobile. Great, it reduces the need to tweak them. Alright, I'll go ahead and update to save my changes. And go back to the editor. Let's continue with the section with the video playing in the background. On tablets, it looks good. But on mobile, although it does play in the editor, when I hide the panel, you can see that by default, it doesn't play on mobile devices. But we can change that. The video itself is set to play in the sections background. So I'll just go to Style. And over here we have the option to play it on mobile. Now, playing videos on mobile devices might not be ideal because it does take up data to load it, and some visitors, they might be limited. So in this case, what we can do is we can set a fallback image to show instead of the video. I'll just go ahead and choose this image. Okay, great. Now let's go back to the desktop and continue with the following section. It has cool motion effects on both columns. In tablet, you can see that it works very nicely as well. On mobile though, it needs just a little bit of adjusting, which is what we'll do soon. First, let's build another section exactly like this so you can see how I did it. And afterwards, we'll go over some responsive options to make sure that it stands out on mobile devices as well. I'll go ahead and drag an inner section under it. And in the left column, I'll drag an image widget. Then I'll go ahead and choose the image. And in the column settings, what I'll do is I'll set the padding to 0. So the image fills up all of the space. And I'll click on the image widget, and in the advanced settings, I'll go to motion effect. Now the scrolling effect works well here. And what I'll do is I'll add a vertical scroll and set the direction to down. And reduce the speed a bit, just so it's a subtle animation. What I'll also do is set the viewport between 20 and 60% of the viewport's height, so the animation starts and ends in that range. If you are new to motion effects, I'll link a tutorial covering all of the basics. I'll link that in the description. There really are many cool things that you can do with motion effects to make your site stand out, so be sure to check that out. Next, what I'll do is drag a heading widget in the right column. And I'll change the text. And align it. I'll also drag an icon list widget under it. And just change the content. Then I'll just duplicate them and change the texts as well, just to save some time. Okay, now let's style it a bit. These options, they also have device icons, so you can really get creative when building custom layouts. Now, just like you saw with the image widget, we can also apply these motion effects on entire columns. So it applies to all of the content inside it, and that's what I'm going to be doing over here. I'll apply the same effect, but in the opposite direction. And for the viewport, I'll set it to between 0 and 50%. Okay, now let's just see the result. Cool. And let's check it out on tablet. Looks good. And on mobile? Okay, so there's a lot going on. As you can see, the image and text, they overlap because mobile devices, they have less space. In this case, it would be best to just disable the motion effects on mobile. And there is an option for that. So I'll click on the image widget. And here, I'll just remove the mobile. So the effect is only applied on desktop and tablet devices. I'll do the same for the other image. Pay attention that the motion effects on the columns, they are still active on mobile and they don't interfere with the user experience. So, if you want, you can remove them, but I'm just going to leave them. Also, as you can see, by default, the images, they appear one after each other on mobile. And sometimes, this is not what we want, and we can change this as well. In the section settings, what we can do is we can just go to advanced, and then under responsive, what I'll do is I'll reverse the columns over here. It's a simple fix that really comes in handy when controlling the layout, which you can also apply to tablets. Now let's move on to the next section with the text. As you can see, they look great on a tablet and also on mobile, because earlier we already made sure that the global primary font is responsive. Okay. Next, I want to just show you how to style your buttons and make sure that they look exactly how we want on tablets and on mobile devices. In the Style tab, you can see that the padding has device icons as well. Now I'll go ahead and I'll just give the button some custom padding for the tablet mode. Pay attention that only the settings that have responsive handles can be tweaked per device size. So for example, if you change the border radius over here while you're in tablet mode, it will also apply this change to desktop and mobile devices because it doesn't have a responsive handle. In mobile mode, you can see that the padding has changed as well. It inherited the changes that are made for tablet, just like we saw earlier. And as you can see, the padding values, they're empty. It's always good to pay attention to this. Okay, let's move on to the last section of this page before we have a look at the footer. Over here, what I want to do is just talk about pixels and percents. As you can see, I added 20% padding to the column. So the heading and the form widgets, they are positioned nicely. But what I can also do is I can use pixels. But I prefer to use the percent for the same reason we saw with the font size. Percentages are relative units as well, and in this case, it's relative to the column it's in. So if I go to the tablet mode, you can see that it scales very nicely. And, of course I can change this to, let's say, 25. And now if I go check out the mobile, you can see that the 25% is inherited from the tablet mode, which in this case is too much. It makes the form fields too small, which actually is bad for user experience. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and reduce it a bit. And this way there's more clickable space in the fields for mobile users. Of course, you can play around with it till you get exactly what you want. All right, we are nearing the end of this webinar. All that's left to do now is just check out the footer. So let's go ahead and do that. Don't forget to save the changes. First, I'll just go ahead and see what the background video, what it looks like on tablets. And I think it looks good, so there's no tweaking needed. Okay, so now let's move on to the second section, which also looks good, but you might want a different layout for tablet. So let's just see how to make custom designs for specific viewports. First, what I'll do is I'll add another section above over here with one column. Then I'll duplicate this logo and I'll drag it here. What I'm basically doing is creating an additional section with the logo that will be set to only show on tablet and on mobile devices. So this way they will have their own layout and it won't seem too busy with all of the content on smaller devices. The logo is a little bit too big because it takes up all of the section space. So I'll just reduce the width a bit. Okay, that's good. And the next thing that I'll do is I'll go to the section settings, and in advanced, I'll just go to responsive. And I'll hide this new section on desktop so that the desktop still stays the same. Now let's go to the column with the logo in the middle. And because we don't want to see it on tablets and mobiles, I'll just set it to be hidden on them. Okay, so let's preview and see what we have so far. The new logo looks good, but because the middle column with the logo is set to hide, the other two columns in the section, they fill up that space and they still get the 1/3 width, just like we saw earlier. So what we need to do to fix it is just control the width. I'll click on the first one and I'll set it to 50%. And I'll do the same for the other one as well. Okay, let's check it out again. Okay, so this looks better, but what we also should do is just add some padding on the sides, just to make it fit a little bit better. I'll go to the section settings because I want the padding to affect all of the content in it. So in advanced, I'll just unlink the padding to set them individually. So this way I can add just padding to the right and the left sides. Okay, that looks good. Now for the credit sections, what I'll simply do is just copy the section that we just added the padding to, and I'll paste the style onto the credit section. As you can see, it automatically pastes the same padding, which will save some time. This works well, but do keep in mind that it will also paste all of the style in the section. So if you've added a background color, for example, it will copy that over as well, which might be something that you don't want. I also just want to remind you that all of the changes that I'm making over here, the changes that have the device icons, they will now be the default for the mobile, because it inherits the changes that we make in the device above it. The padding, for example, will now also be the same for the mobile view, which I'll show you soon. Now I'll also just add some margin to this section, just so there's some space between them. Great. Okay, now lastly, let's just move on to the mobile. There are a couple of things that we need to fix over here. As you can see, the padding that we added to the sides earlier in the tablet, it's applied here as well, and it affects the content a bit and makes it look a little bit squished, which we will fix soon. First, what I'll do is I'll just increase the logo so it takes up all of the space. Moving on to the content, I'll align all of it to the center. This will only be applied to the content when it's being viewed on mobile devices. I'll go ahead and do that to all of the widgets. Okay, let's preview. So like I mentioned before, the padding on the sides, it's a little bit too much. And because this text over here is longer than the rest, it breaks onto the next line. So all we need to do actually to fix this is just adjust the section's padding to give it some more space. Also, I should add some space above the contact details heading. Okay, so first let's just go to the section settings. And for the padding, I'll just set it to 0. So it's all removed. Then finally for the contact details column, what I'll do is I'll unlink the margin and only give it a little bit at the top. Okay, let's check it out one last time. Awesome, everything looks great on mobile as well. Alright, well, that's about it. I hope you learned a lot during this webinar and have a better idea on how to approach your website projects with responsive settings in mind. This is just the tip of the iceberg though, and there's so much more that you can learn. Elementor Pro provides you with so many tools to create highly converting landing pages and fully fledged websites, such as the form widget, motion effects that help bring your pages to life, just like we saw today, pop-ups to keep your visitors engaged, and a theme builder to visually customize your website's headers, footers, archive pages, single post pages, and other areas of your site. And there's a lot more. And the cool thing is that all of these tools and features can be tweaked to look great on mobile and tablet devices, really making your site stand out. Well, that's it. Be sure to join our Facebook groups for loads of helpful tips and tricks, and become part of our huge Elementor community full of like-minded web creators, all helping each other become better at what they do. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel full of helpful tutorials and inspirational videos to help you master Elementor. And on our website, check out the Help Center for easy access to the knowledge base, FAQs, docs, and a lot more. Lastly, we will send you a link to a survey to give some feedback on this webinar, so we can improve them and keep making relevant and to-the-point webinars. Feel free to share your creations inspired from this webinar in the comments below. So I'd like to wish you good luck, and most of all, enjoy being creative. Thanks for tuning in. Ciao for now.